Hey guys, unbeknownst to many still, we are currently in the biggest shift in the evolution of human consciousness ever. So a lot of people will be healing themselves in the coming days, months, years, decades. And there's this phrase of if you heal yourself, you heal the world, that's been thrown around a lot. And it's true. And a lot of people could kind of scoff at it and be like, what do you mean? If you're healing yourself, you're healing the world, you're healing others. That sounds like nonsense. But I want to break it down to illuminate how that is actually true. And you can use many words for healing, right? But kind of the simplest way to look at it is stepping from an unconscious state to a conscious state. And it's not a black and white thing, right? We enter this world taking on massive amounts of unconscious programming, and the path of healing, the path of ascension, the path of human evolution of our consciousness is to step more and more into consciousness. So it's a never-ending journey. It's a spectrum. It's not, again, a one and done black and white. I went to a spiritual seminar over the weekend. I cried for 3 days straight. I'm healed. It doesn't work like that. But the thing is, there's many humans right now that are unaware of what's happening, what's actually happening on an energetic level. And when you remain in unconsciousness, when you remain, again, for all intents and purposes, when you remain unhealed, but again, there's no black and white to it. When a large majority of your body and of your consciousness remains unlooked at, we'll say, you're more of a disservice to the planet than a service. And again, it's not necessarily your fault, because the moment you step into this earth, we're programmed to such a high degree to be unconscious, when our natural state is to be conscious and to flow from moment to moment to moment. But what happens when you're unconscious? You project all of your shit onto the external world, onto other people. When you're conscious, you process it and you go within. When you're unconscious, relationships are the worst. They're horrible for the most part. Because again, you use relationships as a crux to not have to deal with your own issues, right? Relationships are very, very conditional when you're unconscious. Oftentimes, you're both getting a subconscious need met, and you don't even realize it, so that causes a lot of drama in relationships. Every aspect of relationships happens to be conditional when you're unconscious, right? You can tell someone that you love them, but if you're unconscious, there's even a condition for that. You're expecting them to say I love you too back to you, or to respond a certain way when they say I love you. Their unresolved misery when you're living unconsciously is spewed onto you, even when they're trying to be nice to you. It's an energy thing. It can sound silly, but once you tune into the energy of it, it makes sense. When you're really unconscious, you're constantly needing something from other people. You're constantly taking more and more and more. And again, it's different from receiving and being grateful for it. There's no gratitude. There's always a taking of things. Taking and wanting more. What you have is never enough. There's a tremendous amount of lack. I can't afford this. I'm not worthy of this. But because that person is so unconscious and they don't want to feel that lack and deal with that lack within themselves, they project that onto other people, onto their kids, onto their friends. Oh, you can't afford that. If I can't have that, you can't have that. There's a lot of suppression with unconscious people. There's a lot of I'm not good enough not looked at within themselves. So again, they project that onto the world. They project that onto you're not good enough. They project that onto you can't do that. And in terms of health, there's a lot of fear that's not looked at within themselves. Oh, and there's a lot of managing of trying to manage other people's lives. Oh, you should go to the doctor. You don't look well. Oh, you seem depressed. We need to take care of that. A lot of parents do this. A lot of teachers do this. Oh, you look kind of overweight. We should put you on a diet, right? Again, this is all coming from a place of unconsciousness, from a place of someone not addressing their own pain, not addressing their own life misery, not addressing their own situation, and in a very subconscious attempt to not have to deal with that or look at those things, they make someone else, they project their pain and their attention onto other people in order for them to not have to look at their pain. It's very unconscious, it's very subconscious, but it's what's happening a lot of the time. So once you start healing, once you start moving into more of a space of consciousness, you realize quickly how much of a service you are to this planet and how desperately you are needed. Because again, can you see from a very unconscious place, you're leaking your toxic energy to other people. When you become conscious, you give unconditionally. You expect nothing out of relationships. It doesn't mean that you can't have long-term committed relationships, but there's no unhealthy expectations. You need nothing outside of you. You generate everything that you need. Your relationships are just a bonus, a sharing. There's no codependency. There's no lack. There's no, when you become really conscious, there's no disease. The emotions that cause the disease pass right through you. There's no victimhood of, oh my gosh, that person's gonna get me sick. There's none of that. Germ theory doesn't exist in a highly conscious world. It's a third dimensional paradigm, which a lot of people will realize and look back in 2020, 2021, and the remaining decade in horror of how fear convinced them of something that's not even true. But because we've all signed up to energetically play in it, it just seems like it is true. So the more that you are responsible for your own energy, your own thoughts, your own beliefs, and you're no longer projecting that onto somebody else or other people, you literally are a beacon of light in this world. You literally take yourself off the plates of other people having to deal with you because they know that you're good. Because they know that, because you know that everything is good. Because you know that it's all within you. And when you walk around this earth as a healed being, more so and more so and more so, because again, it's not a one and done thing. It's not a black and white, but the more you gravitate towards healing yourself and purging that which is within you that has been unconscious, everything you touch will turn to gold. Every relationship you're in, you'll benefit. Every transaction you'll benefit. Every coffee shop you go into, every experience that you physically step into, that healed lightness within you has no choice but to benefit that situation. When you're operating from a level of deep unconsciousness, you're like a tornado that is so lost that you don't mean to knock things over when you step into the room, that you don't mean to release this toxicity, but you do, you can't help it. And see, what a lot of people do is they try and cover it up. They try and act like everything's okay, but energy doesn't lie, my friends. When you're operating from a state of severe dysfunction, you walk into a room, people know it. Same with when you're walking into a room full of functionality, full of being in your light, full of being in your presence. People know it. They gravitate towards that. They repel away from especially people who act as if they have it all together when they clearly don't energetically. So the biggest service anyone can do for this planet is to heal themselves. You talk about treating the earth kindly. When you start treating yourself kindly and having compassion for yourself and actually being loving to yourself and putting yourself first, the planet is going to benefit. You're going to treat nature. You're going to treat animals. You're going to treat every human being the way that you treat yourself, with love and compassion and honor and celebration. You're not going to try and convince anyone of seeing the world in a different lens. You're going to marvel and say, oh man, you see it this way? Holy shit, I see it this way. There's no need for an argument because there's an understanding, a mutual understanding that it's okay that we've had different experiences, that we're here on this earth to do different things, to serve out different missions, if you want to call it that. There's no angst in trying to convince each other of anything. That's the beauty of what we're stepping into. That's the beauty of a fifth dimensional paradigm where there's no victimhood, where there's no suffering, where everyone takes care of themselves energetically. And because of that, there's no negative energetic toxicity leaks. Think of someone who is a smoker. God love them, not judging smoking, but just it's a good analogy. And, you know, they're walking up and down a street of people who aren't smokers. That's very much what happens with someone who's energetically clogged, who's severely unconscious. They could be waving to people, they could be smiling, hi, how are you doing? But again, they're causing secondhand smoke. They're causing people, they're hurting people. And a lot of the times we see, at least in my experience, very unconscious people. And again, it's not right or wrong. I don't want to create duality and be like, they're unconscious, they're awake, they're asleep. Stop. We don't need that. We don't need more of that shit. But it's to see that these very, on the scale of more unconscious people, you know, they're trying to say, I love you, or look at me. When in reality, if they would just look within themselves and stop energetically smoking, or physically smoking eventually, but once they stop and heal the parts within themselves that are causing that toxic outleak, because again, it's just built up toxicity within them, right? When you heal, you build up love within yourself, and that seeps from your beingness. So yeah. It's a little bit longer than I wanted, but it's important because it's going to be a lot of focus on, like, what do we do? How do we heal? Once the government cracks down more, how do we stop it? And it's not about fighting. It's not about fighting. It's if everyone did the inner work, which is what's going to be asked of everyone, one way or the other, there would be no external turmoil. Do you got me? Do you feel me? the only reason why there's so much destruction, dis-ease, disharmony, hatred, anger, rage on this planet, wars, is because there are wars within ourselves. There is anger, tons of fear, tons of dis-ease within our individual bodies. And because for so long humanity hasn't dealt with that, it's been projected onto the world stage. It's been projected externally into our external lives. And although it looks like, and it will look like it's getting much, much darker as the months go on, it's really nothing new. It's just darkness that has been there, that is finally coming up because there's so much fucking light on this planet. Did I get the sun? The sun's shining on me right now. There's so much light on this planet now that the darkness has to be seen. The fascist nature and the control mechanism nature of the government, of systems, have to be seen. It's like all the disgusting dark crevices of a dark room can't be unexposed anymore because there's a flashlight in the room now. And again, so without, as within, so without. As without, as within, so without, as without, so within. As the flashlight shines on the external world, it's going to shine on the unconscious parts of the external world. It's going to shine on the unconscious parts within us as well. Because that's ultimately what's causing the external mayhem and pandemonium. Does that make sense? This is a huge gift. And it's important to remind yourself of that as September gets very intense, as the months to come get very intense. That everything that's happening, this feeling that life is closing in on you, that that things are that you've relied on for so long are breaking before your eyes, are dismantling. It's a gift to see that which has held your unconsciousness in place. We've signed a collective agreement to no longer tolerate an unconscious world, my friends. Many of us are here, chose to come in during this time on this planet to experience a physical shift in human consciousness. And to boil that down, it literally just means to become, from being unconscious to conscious, to start living from love and to stop living from fear. And the only way that we're going to be rattled from our unconscious state to our conscious state, ever increasing, is to have the, again, not the worst case scenarios necessarily happen to you, no, but to have the fears within you, the darkest fears within you, be triggered. Around losing money, around getting sick, around being alone or losing relationships, around your fears around not being enough, not being good enough, being bad in some way, shame, deep shame. There's a fuck ton of shame on this planet, let me tell you. But again, the beauty of this time, as intense as it has been and will continue to be, is to see through the fear, is to see the illusions, is to see that you actually never needed to live in fear, that you just come down here as a playground to experience the illusion of lack, the illusion of finality, of death, of dis-ease, the illusion of separation, the illusion of you being bad, right? We're being called to step into our consciousness. We're being called to step into a life where fear no longer runs the show. And when things are going well and the boat's not rocked, you'd never have the opportunity of a lifetime, as we do now, to look at your deepest fears. When things are working, quote unquote, and staying stagnant, there's no motivation to change. Humanity is going to have many motivations to change, because the systems that hold or held unconsciousness in place, financial systems, the healthcare systems, suppression systems like 9-to-5 jobs where you're not shining, where you're just working for a paycheck out of fear, relational systems, family systems, friend systems that keep you in a box, all of these systems are going to collapse. Because it's going to get to a point where it's too painful to stay in these systems. You're going to be at a precipice moment of, I need to jump into the unknown, which will ultimately free you, by the way. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll get with jumping into the unknown, which is where your paradise is. But people are going to be urged to jump into the unknown versus to stay in these systems. Again, healthcare systems, financial systems, all the systems, education systems, that will be too painful for humanity to continue to stand in. The unconsciousness will be too much to bear, will be too high of a cost. And that's where your life begins. Most people, they're going to be experiencing not a new chapter in their book of life in the coming months and years, but they're going to be tossing their old book and going to be crafting a new book for themselves. That's how much change, that's how much healing is going to happen on the planet in the next couple of years and decades. So, bringing it back to where I started, is it important to heal yourself? Can you actually heal the planet by healing yourself? Fuck yes. That's the only way. Until we heal ourselves within, until we start generating love and light, true love and light, from an energetic level within ourselves, and that pours out of us from an overflow, from an abundance. Until we do that, there's going to be toxicity that overflows from people. And that toxicity causes harm to the planet, to Mother Nature, to animals, to everything. So yes, it's not only vital, but it's the only thing that fucking matters. Healing you is the only thing that fucking matters right now. And the deeper you step onto this path, the more that you're taken care of, the more that you stop worrying about money, the more you stop worrying about being a certain way in relationships, the more you stop worrying about your health. These things naturally take care of themselves. Whew. Yeah, I think that's it. Again, enjoy this ride, because there are massive gifts that are allowing you to change course and to fine-tune yourself into the person that you've truly come to this earth to be. One that doesn't play in fear anymore, one that doesn't play in lack and disease, believe it or not. One that doesn't play in suppression but one that plays in the fullness of life, in celebration every day, in joy, in bliss, in their full divine essence. I love you guys.